Okay, well, thank you. I just want to read a brief bio about Todd so you get to know him a little bit better, and then just speak on to my experiences with Todd. As a best-selling author, speaker, and teacher on leadership and cultural development, Todd has spent the last decade working with some of the most successful coaches, teams, business leaders, and educators in America. His principles have been embraced by countless leaders, including coaches and athletes from championship programs in the NCAA, NBA, MLB, and NFL. Stories of the profound impact of Todd's message have been featured on ESPN, the magazine, ESPN.com, the Bleacher Report, and Forbes.com. Todd continues to work with many of the most successful coaches in sports and is a popular speaker at major universities, high-profile sports teams, national associations, and high-profile businesses throughout the country. He lives in Indiana with his wife and 3 children, Caden, Kira, and Watson. Todd has spent numerous time working with coaches, as Doug said, Urban Meyer, Dabo Sweeney, and most recently, the most recent Division I national champion, Virginia Cavaliers, Tony Bennett. I've had the opportunity to read his book just like many of you have. They are actually on sale out there. After Todd gets done speaking, we'll be out there selling them. But really think his book is a must-read for anyone that's in a position to influence others. So please join me in welcoming Todd.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks again. Hugs, all right, good. Hey, everybody stand up real quick. We got to make sure we're ready for the day, a great day. It's beautiful out there, but it's a little chilly, so it's a great day to be inside, right? Right? Yeah. I'm so excited, you guys. I get to speak to all different kinds of groups, obviously in business and sports and school groups, education groups, and all different sports. But this sport, I had the opportunity to spend 12 years of my life as an assistant college basketball coach. I love basketball. This was the one I chose. You can tell by looking at me, I look like a natural basketball player, right? Not really. But anyways, but I love basketball, so the opportunity to share with basketball coaches is pretty special. I'm just, again, like I said, I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. You know what I mean? I'm all hopped up. I don't know where to start. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, here's what you got to do just to make sure. I love oxytocin, and usually with groups, like if I'm with your teams, I make you guys hug to start the day. I'm not going to make you do that because who knows, you may be sitting by somebody in a conference or something. So just give a high five. I'm a big believer in words, and tell somebody it's going to be a great couple days. Okay, this is going to be a great couple days, and then you can sit down.
Nice couple days, coach.
And then you sit.
It'll be a great time.
And then, all right. And then the other thing I need, just as a part of it, there's a stack of cards that say leadership thoughts, like kind of by each couple of the aisles, like at the corners. I think you guys already did, but if you can hand those up, there's a stack somewhere. Just kind of hand them up around you. I think there's maybe one. Is there any down there? I'll get you guys some down at your end. I think you guys have some over there. I think there's some down here. I'll talk a little bit more on them in a second. Actually, at the end of the day, I love doing, like, in a lot of cases, especially with sports teams, I'm doing workshops, so 3, 4, 5 hours of stuff, and I got so much stuff that I would love to be able to share today that I know I won't be able to get to. There's some lists that I'll maybe mention, and so there's an email on there, and there's even actually a text thing, and so I give that to you today to let you know that, like, there's some things I'll mention that I can't go through all of them, but if you, like, want a copy, if you email us, like, we will send you, like, a couple of the slides that I would do that have some of these lists on it, so we can do that later. So I'm watching, you guys, a couple of years ago, I'm watching a football game on a Saturday, and this is actually a pretty bad football game for most of the time. It's raining, there's hardly anybody in the stands. I'm one of the few people that's still watching it on TV, you know, but I'm doing that because it's part of my job, right? At least that's what I tell my wife, I have to watch sports. So I'm watching this game, and it's between a Power 5 conference team and another team from a smaller conference, okay? And This Power 5 team is supposedly going to should have been winning big, but it wasn't happening like that. And they were at home, but it was going back and forth, back and forth. We're in the fourth quarter now, and this smaller team is driving the field. It's driving rain. It's muddy. It's nasty. They're driving down the field. It's in the fourth quarter, and they get down all the way to like the 30-yard line, and it's 3rd and 10. They have one timeout left, one prayer to stop the clock. I mean, they're down by 2, so they need just a few more yards. They might be able to get a field goal, but anyways, they're down to the end of the game. Quarterback runs the play. He drops back. And from the side, behind him, where he doesn't see it, he's about 10, 12 yards back. He gets just blasted and sacked. So what does that mean? It means 4th down, clock's running, right? They're on now the 45 or 43 or something like, right? So for all intents and purposes, guys, games are like they're going to have to use their timeout now, and they got 45, they got at least 30 more yards they need to go. But it's 4th and, whatever. So the game's basically over. And this linebacker, I don't know, I think it was maybe a linebacker, he gets up off the quarterback. And he goes, as the quarterback starts to get up, he goes, two-hand, shoves him right back into the mud. Well, y'all know what happens next, right? That's a flag. That's not legal. So they go from 4th, and it's over outside of a prayer, to 1st down on the 15-yard line. We're already now in field goal because it's a 15-yard penalty. So we're now in field goal range. We still have our timeout left. We're only down 2. Basically, game over the other way. Now, I ask you guys a question. Did that play have anything to do with skill set problems? No. Didn't have anything to do with skill set. Now, how about the mindset? Because this is a big deal now. It's been for the last 15, 20 years especially, as it should be, because the mental aspect of the game is huge. We all know that. The mental aspect of golf, tennis, every game, including basketball, baseball, it's huge. But when I ask the question, did it really have to do with mindset? A lot of people go, yeah. Well, kind of. He wasn't mentally tough enough. Well, here's what I would say. If we were to ask this young man, what would happen if you, after sacking a quarterback, shove him with both your hands back down into the mud? How many of you would be willing to bet $100 that that kid knows and knew exactly that would be a 15-yard penalty? You can't do that. Right? So I would argue that it's not completely. What I would tell you, it was a heart set issue. More than anything else. Now again, the mindset, heart set work together. I always talk about them like there's the sprockets on the bike. You know what I mean? Like you got to have both. I'll give you another scenario maybe where, let's suppose you're in a huddle. You're at the end of the game. It's fourth quarter. There's 15 seconds left. You have the ball. You're down 1. You got a senior, all-state stud all year long. You call the play. And you decide to use that senior as a decoy, right? So the senior's actually going to come off the screen, and the person on the screen's going to roll. And we're going to hit the roll. We're going to pop the roll, whatever. That's who we're going to look for, because everybody in the gym thinks we're going to our all-state, right? And in that moment you call that play, that kid standing in the locker, or in the huddle, rolls his eyes and sighs. Because he's mad, or she's mad, and she's not getting the shot. Skill set? Mindset?
Hoosiers.
I mean, like, again, do they know not to roll their eyes? Do they know that that's going to have an adverse effect on their teammates? If you really sat them down, I'm willing to bet a lot of money, you guys, that they know, but still do it. It's heart set. And one's easy, and someone's dribbling down the court. And I got somebody wide open right there, but I'm really trying to think about me, and I want to get this next point, whatever, for whatever reason, and I look, and I shoot. Skill set, mindset, heart set. See, selfishness is a heart issue. Pride, and I'm not talking about pride in your team, but I'm talking about the opposite of humility. That is a heart set issue. And those are the things, you guys, those little examples that I just gave you, I bet I could stand out here, I bet I could call each one of you up, and I bet you could each give an example just like that. Those make the difference in every season. Those make the difference in how we lead. I'm going to talk to you today about leadership, culture, and the real heart of the team, but I probably could call it heart set because, again, I feel like this is such an important part of what we should be focusing on. The question I have for you as you think about the heart, so how much time do you spend on that aspect of the game? Before I go into what the leadership culture and the heart of your team, I want to give you just a little bit of perspective. Perspective is something that's really important to me, you guys. In fact, anytime I get to share with a group, I almost always talk, at least to some extent, about the importance of perspective. You guys have talked to your team about perspective. Kids have lost, they lose 3 games in a row, and they're down, and they say, you reminded them of the children's hospital down the street. Perspective, right? Where you got a friend that was in an accident, or somebody else that would give anything to be in their place. I mean, perspective is a powerful thing. It shapes our thoughts and our ideas, and each one of us has a unique perspective. We each have a very unique perspective. But it's important to think about from time to time because it shapes our thoughts and ideas, and also shapes how we respond to things going on around us a lot. So I hope to challenge your perspective in some way, shape, or form today on the topics of leadership culture and this heart thing that I talked about a little bit ago in a big time way. My perspective, just so you know, I think it's important when I stand before people just to give you just a 1 or 2 minute thing. My perspective, where I'm coming from, just so you guys know. You got to have a little bit of a unique perspective. Yes, I wrote this book, but if we back way up, I grew up in a family with 4 boys, lots of competition early on, and still to this day even. That shaped my perspective. Right now, I've been married. I married my high school sweetheart. We just celebrated 25 years this year. Being married 25 years shapes your perspective. Those of you that are married 3 years, trust me. Those of you that are married 25 or 30, you'll be saying, yep, amen. And perspective changes. And how about kids? I've got a 19-year-old freshman in college. I've got a 16-year-old sophomore in high school. And I've got a 9-year-old third grader that we adopted from Haiti. Going to Haiti, by the way, really, really rocks your perspective. Reminds you of some things that I think we all need reminded of from time to time. And obviously the journey with this sweet little boy in our family has shaped my perspective too. The sports world, I told you I love basketball, so I've been playing that sport. I played all sports as soon as I can, so it's been a part of 40 years now, because I'm 49, so I figure I know I started 8 or 9 years old with Pee-wee baseball. I played little football, baseball, soccer, basketball, all sports as much as I could. All the way up to being a scrub walk-on in college. Shaped my perspective. The business world, you guys, I grew up as a part of a family business. And I think we underestimate a lot of times in athletics just how much we can gain from the business world and what they're doing in the business world and how they're leading people and how they're shaping their cultures. That was a tremendous shaper of my perspective over the years, growing up as a part of a family business, but then also later on, being able to study, being able to, I was brought in actually to a CEO brought me in to a company doing about $250 million a year, plants all over the country, had the opportunity to kind of serve in a leadership position there. And then we were bought by our largest competitor, a public company, had the opportunity to serve some years in a leadership position there. All of those things really shaped my perspective. Probably most significantly, guys, was the 12 years kind of in the middle of that where I was an assistant college basketball coach in the 90s. And because it was an NAIA D2 school, I had to keep my day job. So I was working full-time in the business world, so running parallel. And during that time, guys, I saw the necessity of leadership big time. Man, I was challenged big time on how do we get leadership? How do we step up in our leadership team, in the business, and at the same time, how do I help these kids do the same thing? Those things, that experience big time shaped my perspective. During that time, I started reading. I became obsessed with the topic of research, or reading about leadership. Obviously, hundreds and hundreds of leadership books. Like I said, I became obsessed, probably too much on that topic. All the way up to almost 10 years ago where I wrote this book. Felt called to write this book. Never again, you guys, those of you that have read it, I've talked to a number of you today here, and I've shared this just as a kind of a side caveat. This is a parable. It's a story, so it's really an easy, quick read. I never intended to do it that way. And I'm so thankful that when I sat down and I struggled for weeks and weeks after feeling this call to write this book, I'm so thankful that I feel like I heard a voice from God saying, start over with a short story, Todd. I didn't have a clue how to write fiction, and quite frankly, I'm not a good reader, so I don't really read fiction unless someone says you really need to read this so you can learn something, you know? So I didn't have a clue how to write fiction. I just started out. Didn't have no plot, characters, any of this thing just poured out. But since that time, you guys, amazing experience of being able to then go into all of these college football programs and basketball programs and soccer programs and tennis and golf. All these gave me an amazing perspective. I'm so thankful for it. And that goes back to what I shared a little bit ago about how excited I am. I have so much that I want to share with you today and challenge you on. Like I said, those cards, remember, you can get lists as I go through this. I'm going to name a couple of them. So I'm going to challenge you with five big questions that I think you need to be asking. I have this thing for questions over the years, and really as a result, I think, of a lot of my reading. I came to realize at one point, finally, probably in the late 90s, early 2000s, that really life wasn't nearly as important as I had all the right answers as it was that I understood maybe what the most important questions I should be asking are. Now, I want you to really think about that, coaches. Think of the power of questions. Because it's in our tendency, because we so often want to get things done so fast that we don't have time. And so we just want to say, do this. And then we wonder, why is that not setting in? And in a lot of cases, you guys, we as humans need the opportunity to think through and arrive at the solution. And so a lot of times, the question is the most powerful thing. And those of you that read the book, my hero, Joe, you can probably imagine, he was a master of questions, wasn't he? Just a master of questions. He understood how powerful that could be. So 5 questions I'm going to challenge you with. The first one is, what is leadership to you? What is leadership to you? I need just which one of you guys feels like running? Does any of you guys feel like running right now? Oh yeah, we got one. Okay, 2. That's all. 2. Come on. Just you. No. Who raised? You raised your hand. You said you feel like running. Look at this. See? I like that. Good to meet you. What's your name? Sean. Good to meet you. I'm Todd. Jaden. Good to meet you guys. Thanks for being here. Good day today so far. You ready? I'm going to be the easiest one. The rest of these guys, they're gonna probably have run all kinds of stuff. This is easy. All we got to do is one sprint. All right. All right. So let's just go one sprint when I say go. What? Baseline. You said baseline. Okay, sure. Baseline to baseline. That's what he asked me. He said baseline to baseline. I didn't tell. I just said sprint. Okay, ready? Go. Now they're racing. And we'll know which one got up. Oh no. Oh yeah, that I did. I said baseline to baseline. Oh man. All right. Hey, clap for these guys because they got up early. Just to get work. How easy was that? Such an easy example. If we didn't have players here, I was going to grab some coaches. Aren't you guys glad? Some of you that I didn't grab a couple, pull a hammy out here. Thanks, guys. Yeah. See, now they're going to be arguing about baseline. I did. I said baseline. What does that have to do with leadership? I'm going to ask you another question before I talk on that. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to get the number one most important attribute in leadership in your head right now. Don't say it out loud. But just get it in your head. If I had sat down with you and I said, what's the most important thing? I want you to think about what you tell me. What's that one word going to be? Now on 3, I need you all to say it really loud. Okay? If you don't say it, we're going to get up and hug. So I got to hear you. 1, 2, 3.
Sure.
We're all over the board, guys. We should all run, right? So give me some words that you heard. What are some words that we heard over here? Give me communication. This is a team of it. What else did we hear over here? Heart. I heard heart. What else? He said pride. Okay, good. Give me another. Give me one up here. Example. Courage. Service. Inspiration. I love it. Keep going. Confidence. Service. That's our first double. We asked 8 to 10, right? Before we got to that double. Right? It's probably 8 to 10 of you that gave an answer. Here's the thing. You're all wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Now, here's what it illustrates, you guys. Every one of us thinks a little bit differently when we hear the term leadership. We need a baseline. When I said run sprints, it was great with these guys because I just said, hey, let's run sprints. I just want you to run one sprint. And they said, the baseline? They asked me because they knew. Every coach in American basketball, every kid on your team knows where the baseline is. And even though there's a variance in terms of where exactly they can land on that or start on that, they at least know we have a starting point. We all know where the baseline is. And it's not the favorite thing to hear in practice, right? No, see, they're shaking their head. No. But, thank goodness we know where the baseline is. That gives us a starting point. So, anytime I talk about leadership, you guys, I say it's so important that we understand where we develop a baseline so our kids all know when we're in a huddle, when we're in the locker room, and we're frustrated as heck, and we go, you know what, guys? You know what, gals? I'm tired of a lack of leadership here. I'm tired of us showing no leadership. Seniors, I'm done. Where is your leadership? You say it 8, 10 times. And what you don't realize, coaches, is that 15 kids in the room are thinking about 10 different words when you say that. Yeah, we need more courage. We need more trust. We need more respect. Whatever it may be, and they're not wrong. But can we get them on the same page and start with the baseline? And when I do that, I always say, leadership begins, and you all have heard this, but we got to talk about it. We got to make sure and clarify. Leadership begins with influence. It begins with influence. You can say impact, all kinds of other things, but that's where it starts. And again, but it doesn't stop. It's much more than influence because food influences us along with a lot of other things. It begins with influence. From words, attitudes, and behaviors that flow from and through our character. That's my baseline definition of leadership. Now, here's what you have to understand, though. The bottom line is, you guys, I said everybody thinks a little different, especially with the term when we go to this leadership thing. You have to understand that there's a dangerous way of thinking about leadership too, and that is the status, hierarchy, power status, position thing. So when someone says, what does leadership mean? The first thing they say, well, the seniors are the leaders because of the hierarchy. Yes, that's true. But there's danger in that because when that's what they look at leadership as, there's a couple different things that can really become dangerous. Number one is they can get the mindset of when I get to, which means I'm a freshman, doesn't really matter now. I'm a sophomore, I'm a backup. Oh, wait, I'm a red shirt, I'm injured. You know what I'm saying? So all of these different things that would typically maybe classify somebody as, well, you're marginalized now, at least as a leader on our team. You're not one of the leaders anymore. A lot of times they're thinking that way. And so the words and the attitudes and behaviors don't quite carry the weight. See, when we start off with influence from words, attitudes, behaviors instead, every single person has a role. When we stay with power and status, oh, by the way, as the dangerous thing with players that are thinking power and status, and that's what, if they're defining leadership like that, The other dangerous thing, you guys, is the number one concern that they'll have is impressing those folks who hold their power and status in their hands. It's one of the biggest problems, dangers I see in college sports today. Because there are many times when I see kids. So how that equates to the floor is I'm doing a drill, and we're both sophomores, and coach looks, and all of a sudden I get down a little lower. Right? I get down a little lower and I'm a little wider. And I'm going to go a little quicker. But now coach is on the other end of the floor. So I'm with this sophomore. I'm a junior. And so now I'm doing this. Right? Because my number one concern isn't my influence. It's who's watching me and who might advance me. And guess what? Guess who that negatively impacts? That impacts me and the person I'm going against. So this is a real thing. It's a simple thing, but it's a very real and powerful concept, I believe. Got to define it right from the beginning. What is leadership? Do you understand that every single one of you on this team plays a role in leadership when it begins with influence? And that role begins with a choice. Because, remember I said it comes from words, attitudes, behaviors, or I call them WAVs, right? WAVs. And you choose your WAVs. Oh, sweet, my pizza's here. Oh, I'm just kidding. Sorry, dude. I didn't mean to. Nothing. Somebody tip him extra. Gosh, where was I? Oh, words, attitudes, behaviors. Every word is a choice. There's a lot of studies right now that are talking about, that tell you that your words spoken are up to 10 times more powerful than your thoughts even. And thoughts are powerful. You guys know that. We know the mental game. But the words spoken out loud really have an unbelievably powerful effect. Not only on us, but on the person that hears it. It actually has the ability that words can actually alter the brain, the cell structure going on in the brain right now, and can either release good things or bad things. Talks about one negative word has the power of activating the amygdala. Obviously, that's the fear center, the fight or flight center, releasing stress hormones, neurotransmitters, causing muscles to tense, interrupting brain function, partially shutting down the logic and reasoning. Now, is that what we want to do with our kids, and is that what we want our kids doing with each other? Like the negative words can have a really powerful negative effect, and it's a choice. Here's the thing I challenge coaches with. How many of you can go back 10 years, and some of you are pretty young, how many of you can go back 10 years or more and you can remember something somebody said to you that deeply hurt you? Just raise your hand. It's usually about 80% of the audience are reading. You can remember something somebody said. I can go back, I'm 49, I can go back to 6th grade basketball. I remember exactly what that coach told me. I remember exactly where I was saying it on the floor. I go back to 7th grade science. A lot of you have that experience where you can go back 10 years or more. And the challenge I would have for all of you, whether you have that experience or not, is anybody in 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 30 years from now, going to raise their hand thinking about you in a negative way? Unfortunately, the negatives are more positive a lot of times, or more powerful than the positives. Wish it wasn't that way, but that's how we're made. Protects us, right? Touch a hot stove, it's a negative experience. We remember it, right? We all have a role and a choice in our leadership. Words are powerful. Attitudes, obviously attitudes the same as words in terms of it's contagious. I tell teams all the time, one negative attitude is way more powerful than just, you can't offset one negative attitude with one positive. It takes a team. It takes communication from everybody. Because the negative attitude, that whole saying about one bad apple, spoils the bunch, ruins the bush, there's a reason that they came up with that. It's true. Attitudes are so powerful. And then I go right to behaviors because I feel like attitudes and behaviors, go hand in hand. And the easiest thing when I talk about behaviors is, guys, just imagine if a coach, let's just say just something crazy, like if a coach made a behavior like, let's say a coach threw a chair out on the floor. That would never happen. But that's a behavior that no one will ever forget. Right? Behaviors are powerful. Slamming doors, kicking things, breaking things. Behaviors are powerful too, go right along. But here's the other thing that I really want to challenge coaches with these days, and that has to do, it's kind of a behavior and attitude together, but it's our expressions and our body language and posture. And they're learning more and more about the effects that our posture even, or our body language, our facial expressions and posture has on our brains. Like the chemicals released, it has a big time impact on, again, what chemicals are being released in our brain from time to time. So just the mere act of smiling has been known to, again, release like serotonin, dopamine, like better chemicals in the brain to help our thinking, to help our feeling, different things like that. And the opposite is true too. Facial expressions, body language, man, every coach in America talks to the team about this. This is such a challenge. You guys, I see this all the time when I'm talking to teams. I'm like, our posture is huge. Again, 2 minutes. It's a recent study said 2 minutes standing in an upright, confident posture lowers your cortisol level, which is a stressor that does all those things I described earlier. It can lower this cortisol level up to 15%. So just doing this and smiling. And think about it, guys. What is momentum? Like, what is it? They talk about it all the time, but what is it? You know what it is? It's expressions and postures and words all dropping. And guess what? It's contagious. It's like, you're watching a football game or basketball, the momentum is shifted, and you look at the bench, it's like, It's hard, because 3 bad things happen in a row, man, it's hard to sit there. I'm not expecting you to smile, don't get me wrong. But how did Michael Jordan react every time he missed a shot? Do you ever remember seeing Michael Jordan win? No. He may have missed a shot. But the best of the best. I saw a viral video a couple years ago, and I'm not going to throw this coach under the bus because he's one of, there's many that do the same thing. But I watched the video on a coach that he shared about body language. And I think almost every coach in America saw this on Twitter and retweeted it because it was like, hey kids, watch this. Because this amazing coach that's won multiple championships was talking about how important body language was. And I agree. You just heard why. Momentum, all this stuff. Body language. I'm not putting you back in if you come to the bench with bad body. That's right. I agree with that. Now, here's what I did though. I thought I'm going to Google images. And I'm going to check out what his body language is. And then all of a sudden I started seeing some. I get it. Just so you guys know, you can probably guess. I have a natural bent toward intensity and animation. So I get the expression stuff. When I was coaching, I got 2 texts as an assistant coach. You're not supposed to do that, by the way. So I get the challenge of it. But man, if we want them to have good body language, we got to start. Anything we want, we got to model it. Words, attitudes, and behaviors are a choice. Right from the get-go. What choices are we making? What are we modeling to those that we're leading? Second question, what's the heart of leadership? Because you got to go a little deeper. So what is leadership to you now? What is the heart of leadership? And you guys, I said it was character. Character is the heart of leadership. And I use those 2 terms synonymously. What is character? Characters are the combination of distinct qualities and traits. I love, it came from a Greek term that actually was a stamp that we would use, whether it was stamped in animals or even stamped in leather. Can you imagine those things those little things, those stamps that they pound and they leave a mark in the leather? I think that's so, think about it. It makes total sense. It's your mark, right? And it's the mark you leave on others. Character influences character. It's your mark that you're also leaving on others. So when I talk about character being the heart of leadership, that's when coaches come to me and go, Todd, man, I just want to be a coach that leads from the heart. And I just go, wow, done. Already done. You're already a coach that leads from the heart. Every single person in here is leading from the heart. The question is where's your heart? What's really going on inside there? Because what's coming out is coming from within. Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. right? So when we drop a well in a bucket, you guys, the only thing that comes, that'd be really hard. When we drop a bucket in a well, the only thing that comes out is what's in that well, right? So the words add to the behaviors, you guys. Where are we? If we'd be really wise, if we're struggling with those things, to go, okay, where is my heart? I'm leading from the heart, but in what ways and how? When you come to this realization, guys, I think you come up with this. Joe called it in the book. He called it the choice within the choice. And I love Joe's a janitor, wise janitor. And it's not as cliche as you guys think. Just ask somebody that's read it. This wise janitor, he talked about the choice within the choice. When we really understand that our leadership is about our influence, and it's about others more than us, we begin to make this choice within the choice. And all these things that we want every day, but before we go to make those decisions, we think about how's the impact going to be? What impact is this really going to have on those people around us? I was coaching my son. I got out of coaching in 2003, 2004 officially, and then from that point on, I've coached literally hundreds of youth sports games with my son and my daughter. And haven't started my younger son yet. That'll be a whole different story. But I'm coaching this game, and guys, it's a tournament. It's the last game of the tournament, and I don't yell at youth sports officials because I just expect them to be bad. I mean, I know some of you might say I think the same thing about high school, but I shouldn't say that. There might be high school officials that are great. But youth sports especially, they're volunteers, so give them a break, just let it go, okay? And don't, and the example, all those reasons, I just don't do it. This guy's killing me. He's killing me. And I'm like biting my tongue. I think, like I said, I think I've broken like 3 fingers because I'm clenching my hands together so tight, and I'm trying not to say anything to him. And he does it the whole game, and finally he got what I believe he wanted, which is we were getting beat. And I think, like I said, you guys, I'm thinking at one point he read my book and was testing me. Because it was like, what? And so I'm at the end of the game, get 20 seconds left, we're down 10, game's over, ball comes over to me, and I catch it. And there's a neutral official sitting right in front of me, he's going like this, throwing the ball top. Not Todd, he doesn't know me. But he's saying, throw it to me. And I look up and I see this other guy, and he's not looking at me. And I got the ball. And it's the last game of the tournament. Last game of the league. 8th grade, so I'm not coming back. And you know how this all goes through your mind, right? And it doesn't even take a second to figure all that out. You guys know this. You're thinking, should I do it? And I literally, you guys, I'm sorry, but I'm just like, this would feel so good. Unless, of course, I missed. Now, that would be really embarrassing. But I'm like, I'm going to pelt him right there. And you guys, the choice within the choice stops right away and says, wait a minute. What's the full impact of this going to be? What's your influence now? This is a choice you're going to make. And what are you going to, you've been teaching these kids since 3rd grade. What's it going to say to them? What's it going to say to their parents? What's it going to say? You know what I mean? The influence. We all are faced with those choices every day. You guys, we have a thing we call the WAB workout. This is one of those lists that I told you about that I can't go through all of them. But it's choices that we're faced with every day that we can either, and again, let me find this thing, at least read a couple to you. We can choose the selfish, whatever we want, or really think about our influence. So it's like owning or blaming. This is the number one, and probably number one for a reason, because this responsibility thing is such a huge issue in our society right now. As we all want to do this. Fact is, you guys, when I speak to young people about this topic right here, first thing I do is I apologize for my generation, and even the generation before me. Because I said, we're communicating really bad things to you in terms of how you handle adversity. Because all you see on TV is who can we blame? Who can we get even with? It's this. All it is this. And then we come home, little Johnny gets to see on the report card, whose fault is it? Little Sally isn't getting in the game enough. Whose fault is it? You guys know, you're coaches. It's always the coach's fault, right? You know the game, but we're all guilty of it. And it's a huge issue. You guys, like I said, when I say we're all guilty of it, I talk to coaches all the time. And said, Todd, these kids are changing. As parents, what do we do? How do we do? I tell them all the time, I say, you know what, you guys? Last I checked, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, they're selfish. In case you were wondering. In case you didn't. In case any of you coaches, write that down on your notes. That's a key point today. Oh, by the way, every one of us was when we were that age. And here's something else. We're all still battling. There ain't anybody in here that isn't battling selfish stuff once in a while. So now that one you can write down. Because we love to go like this. We don't have a kid problem. We don't have a parent problem. We don't have an administration problem. And we don't have a coach problem. We have what's called a heart problem. Heart set, everybody. Heart. Selfishness, pride, and I'm talking not the good. I'm talking about the, again, opposite of humility. The heart issues. Can we own it? Can we find where we are contributing to the problem and try to make a change as a result of that? Got to get to this heart. It's owning versus blaming, serious, sarcastic, grateful versus entitled, good mouth versus bad mouth. I don't know if good mouth is a word, you guys, but I didn't know what the opposite of bad mouth was, so I made it up. Confronting issues versus ignoring issues. That kids struggle communicating now. I know we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Considerate, careless, believer, cynic, self-controlled, impulsive, e-builder, e-breaker. That's just how we're acting on social media. So anyways, that's a WAB. We do a WAB workout with that. And that's one of those lists if you want that. So powerful that we own right from the get-go at the top of that list, that we own versus blame. Number 3 question. So we want to know what leadership is. What is the heart of leadership as character? What is culture? I think it's important for us just to get the basics of that. So the textbooks will tell you physical surroundings, stated beliefs, and social norms. You can get that anywhere. But if you really stop and think about all those things are all just people. That's what they are. Physical surroundings are determined by people. Stated beliefs are determined by people. And, of course, social norms are determined by people. So your culture is people. If leadership begins in the heart, your culture begins in the heart, because all it is a group of people together. And so my simple definition, you guys, of culture is it's simply a reflection of the collective character within. Culture is simply a reflection of the collective character within. And when we have our kids sitting in front of us, do you understand, freshmen, that your character matters? Your heart impacts the heart of our culture. Because we got a baseline of leadership that begins with influence. Every single person makes a difference. Every single person. Every heart matters. You guys, it's interesting. This is one of the things I elaborate on a lot more, obviously, and I don't have time today. But I'm just amazed. Like 4 years ago, I thought I was actually flying to work with a college and work with a bunch of the head coaches, and I was thinking, why are we talking about culture so much now? Why does it seem like every coach in America talks about culture? Because 10 years ago, I never heard that word in sports. Now, remember I told you my background was, I've been in the business world my whole life. So guess what? I've been studying Toyota and Starbucks and Chick-fil-A and all these other... I've been studying because they've been talking about culture for 30 years. And I'm thinking, why? Why the change in the last... And then I got thinking, what are the things that make the most elite teams? Like, what are we trying to teach kids? Selflessness and delayed gratification, like work ethic and trust and loyalty and humility. Like, these are the things, you guys, that, man, we'd give anything to have teams that are loaded with kids that have those attributes, right? And then I started thinking, well, what are the norms in society today? Now, they've never been completely what I just described. So they're way more than that. They've always fought against those, by and large. But here's the difference, you guys. So this culture that's feeding the kids, 24/7. You get them for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and the other 23, they're like this. And they're hearing me. Promote yourself, promote yourself, promote yourself. You should get this right away. You should get, no delayed gratification. I mean, like they're hearing the opposites, right? This has been the game changer, guys. The opposition's moved way beyond the field of play. And it's in their pockets, in their hands all day long. Here's what I tell coaches all the time, because you guys still have the opportunity to pull them away from this thing, because you're not pulling them away from their entire social structure. Whereas in normal cases, when a kid gets this pulled away from them, it's their entire social structure. That's how the kids communicate nowadays. So we communicate in a lot of ways. Like I said, I wish I could go more into that, but that's a huge reason that we have the challenges that we're having right now in the cultures that we're trying to shape as coaches. I like it. You guys remember the scene in Ghost where they were making it's kind of steamy, not today's, but you remember they're making like it was Demi and what's his name? Patrick Swayze, yeah. And they're doing the whole pottery thing. It's like this, like you guys get the pot. We used to get it, like from the parents or whatever, and we really were able to make some headway on it. Nowadays, I say, it's like we got the pot like this, and it's like 100 little fingers going constantly saying selfish, saying, me, all the other stuff. Digital media, you guys, is again, like I said, when I started this journey 10 years ago, I barely addressed it, barely talked about it. And nowadays, I spend probably 30% of my time, typically, in workshops. I'm talking about what can we do. Biggest thing I'll tell you guys, because of the challenge at the beginning, like I said, I don't have time to go into a whole bunch of stuff. But the number one thing I'll tell you is create B zones. B zones. Those of you that are on Twitter, tweet that. Get it? Social media. B zones. Be where you are. We've never had more of a time in history where we've had more opportunities not to be where we are. It just saddens me. I see a husband and wife who look like they're out on a date, and they stop at a stoplight. And what's going on? It's this. It's this. You go to a restaurant. You look around, you see families, everybody. Guys, you got it. I mean, it's not by mistake. If you do the research, one of the founders of Facebook, not Zuckerberg, one of the guys that defected, one of the guys from Apple, he actually said he defected too. He talks about ISIS. There was an article, the headline was, I wake up in a cold sweat at night, wondering if what we brought to the world was better or if we didn't destroy it. He said, you know what happened? Because we were a bunch of 20-something years old when we were creating the smartphone, and we were doing everything we could to make it addictive, to cause dopamine releases. Social validation, feedback, intermittent variable rewards. Those of you that played slot machine tonight, that's what you're going to do. You're going to have variable rewards. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to go 4 times, you're going to be able to walk away, and then you're going to win 25 cents. And you're going to think, the next one. And then you're going to keep playing. That's called intermittent variable rewards. And they did that to your smartphones. That's what text does. Ding! Notifications. They knew what they were doing. He said we were a bunch of 20-somethings when we were building this stuff to be addictive. And now we're in our 30s and we have kids. Now we're in our 30s and we have kids, and we're freaking out about what is happening to society. With that, that takes you to the next one, you guys. And I've got to wrap up here in a second, so I'm going to go through these last 2 really quick. The next one is, who do you really want to be? Character is always under construction. Your character is always under construction. People you spend your time with, the things you read. Joe talked about that in the book. Those are the 2 things that impact your life. People you spend your time with, things you read. But once again, guys, I'll go right back to this. Now, there's a huge portion of the people and the things we read that are right here. And oh, by the way, the other thing is make no mistake, the people that... Twitter is not a person. Okay, but it operates by the opinions of the majority that are on Twitter. So don't just believe it as news. And that's the same with most of what we're getting through all our forms of media now. It's opinions. We have to monetize, desensitize, polarize, and politicize. That's what we're trying to do. And unfortunately, I don't care which side you agree with or not, what's scary to me is that kids, in a lot of cases, aren't understanding that. And so they're just blindly going whatever they read. And again, write this down, you guys. Not everything on Twitter is true. I love Twitter. I have to be on. I shouldn't say I love Twitter. I have to be on Twitter. It's a huge part of what I do. I want you guys to follow me. But I want us to make good stuff and tweet good stuff. Good comments, good thoughts, good ideas. Character is always under construction. We have to be intentional. Self-awareness, if you would have asked me, guys, that question at the beginning, that would have been the question that would have been the answer I gave you. What's the most important attribute? I would have said self-awareness. Because I think that's the biggest problem facing our industry, not just leadership in general. Coaches, business leaders, whatever. The most successful leaders I deal with, some of the highest profile, most successful, are the ones that often have the biggest blind spots and the toughest ones to get to listen to anybody else. Because you know what? They're telling themselves every night when they go to bed, man, am I smart. They never say when they go to bed. They might say it publicly, but they never say when they go to bed, man, am I lucky. Even though players get hurt, there's all kinds of things that come into success. As we know, with results. Self-awareness. Biggest part of that, you guys, find a Joe, be a Joe. Find a Joe, be a Joe. Joe was somebody, he was a truth teller. You've got to have truth tellers in your life. This is the biggest part of the heart set. Indicators of the right heart set. This is another one I'll give you guys. I don't have lots of time to spend on it, but there's an acronym for heart, humility, empathy, accountability, responsibility, and trust. And you know what? None of the last group work without the first one. You spend 80% of the time on the first one, the humility one, but that's the toughest one in society today. Last question is why do you do what you do? It's all about purpose, and you've got to have a bigger purpose. You guys, Inky Johnson, I love his stuff. He always talks about purpose, why. You've got to understand the why. If you've read the book, you know that's a core part of the foundation. But here's the thing, you guys. You have to understand the greatest leaders in history always knew their why. Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Abraham Lincoln, Nelson Mandela. They all stood for what, they did what they did because they had a huge why that they were striving for. But make no mistake, you guys, Hitler had a big why too. So it's so important for us to go beyond just kind of the surface why. Hey, your why is to be a great basketball player in life. I got news for you. This is where we get this t-shirt, the purpose, just so you know, I didn't wear it today, but the purpose over passion for a reason, because we get confused, these two terms, passion and purpose. And they're not the same. People go, well, find your passion and that's your purpose. Passion is a strong affinity for something. Purpose is a reason for being. Those are two very different things. And in fact, you guys, your passion will change over the course of your life. Because your gifts, talents, and opportunities will change too. I tell young people that all the time. Some young people are stressing out. Wow, I hope I find my purpose. Here's the thing, you guys. Didn't realize it until I was 32. And I was running after all the wrong things in life. I'll give you the quick version of this. And I had a breakdown experience where I was actually in a room in my bed, in a bedroom in my house, crying because so much of what I wanted to accomplish wasn't going right, you guys. And I remember in my room that day, I'm crying on my knees, and I'm asking the question, why? Why do I do what I do? And I found out how deceptive I'd been to myself, how self-awareness had wreaked havoc in my life. And I realized I could justify all of my pursuits in a really easy, big way. And I had been, in fact, as a player, as a coach, as a businessman. I would tell you all the right reasons. There's not a coach in America that wouldn't say I coach for the kids. But there's also, more often than not, times we struggle losing sight of what that really means. The bigger why. And for me that day, you guys, I remember asking the question, why? And I went from why do I do what I do to why am I here on this earth? Why do you even have me here, God? And I remember that moment, my son walked in the room. He was barely 3 years old at the time. And I felt like I got the answer. It's all about relationships. When we begin with relationships, when that's the foundation, when we teach kids, this is the why, you guys. The winning and the games and all these other things, they're going to add to your life. But the foundation has to stay true, because relationships, when you're 95 years old, that's what's going to matter the most. When you're 50 years old, that's what's going to matter the most. Those are the things you're going to take away. Is what did you do with the relationships I had you here for? That's what matters more than anything else. Ask those questions. Get based on leadership. What is leadership? What's the heart? Who do we really want to be? How do we do this? But ultimately, why you do what you do needs to line up with why you're here on this earth. It's my challenge to you guys as coaches. Thank you for your time today.